Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome back to another viewer question video. Today I'm actually going to be combining two questions that I've gotten in the past into one video because it's all on the subject of rarities in my collection. So the questions that I've been asked that I'm going to focus on today are number one, what are the rarest items that I have in my collection? And number two, am I a collector who wants to pursue rare items and wants to get hard to find or high value items in my collection? So I figure what I'll do is answer the what are the rarest items in my collection first, and then I'll kind of go on to what I really want to do in terms of collecting rare items. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll have a look at some of the rarest things that I have. Now, before I get to showing off these items, I want to make it clear that not all of these items are going to be things that are high value. In fact, there's probably not a lot of high value items in my collection. I'm not going to go over the main 0 edition AD&D books because I think I've shown those off a lot. So I want to focus on things that I haven't really shown in a lot of my videos, but they're rare because of things like maybe they were made in limited quantities, they had only like a single production run, or some of the things that I have actually weren't made originally available for retail, so these were things that were exclusive to game stores. So again, I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll show off, like I said, some of the rarer things that I have. So for the rare items in my collection, I'm going to start off by having a series of these all put together as one entry. I tried to find 10 things that I consider to be highly rare in my collection. So these are the D&D Icons dragons that were put out. Unfortunately, they never made a green dragon, which really kind of upset me because the green dragon is one of my favorites. And I mean, just look at the size of them. The red dragon is so massive that I have to, basically I can't even get the rest of the dragons in the picture with it. These came in large boxes. I have the boxes still, and they didn't come out in massive quantities. So these were kind of collector's items when they came out. Now the blue and the black dragon cost around $40, $45 I think when it first came out. The red dragon was $90, and I think I paid around $50 or $60 for the white dragon. So we'll just have sort of a closer look here. And again, you've seen these probably if you watch any of my other videos. I do tend to use these from time to time as miniatures. The black dragon came out first, and the black dragon is one of my all-time favorites. I just love like the face and the design of the black dragon with like the skull kind of look to it. So awesome. The red dragon came out second, and then that was followed by the blue dragon, which again, the details on these things are just unbelievable. One of these days when I have the money and have the space, what I like to do is kind of put these in a just a collector's case with some other miniatures, just because these things collect dust really easily. I spend like 10 minutes trying to get some of the dust off before I started recording, unfortunately. But anyway, that's that. Now the white dragon, which was the last one to come out, as far as the dragons go, was actually the Legend of Dritz scenario pack is what it was called. And if you're wondering, inside the boxes you got the rules and scenarios as well as the stat cards. So there's the Gargantuan black dragon, Colossal red, Gargantuan blue, and the Legend of Dritz scenario pack. So this actually came with cards with the smaller miniatures, because in addition to the white dragon, which I'll show here in a second, it also came with a Dritz miniature, which is an alternate sculpt. I get it to focus there. So this is a different sculpt than what appeared in the actual collectible miniatures game, which I never got that one until I bought the Legend Dritz board game, which has like a solid blue plastic unpainted one. But this was a unique sculpt, so this again makes it sort of collectible. And it also came with Wolfgar. Again, see if we can get her to zoom. There we go. So Wolfgar also came with a set, Aegis Fang, with a little bit of blood on it. Looks like he already hit something with it, which is pretty cool. And then we've got the Gargantuan White Dragon Icing Death. I love this miniature. It is so cool looking. The details are great. I just love the sculpt. I love the pose, the wings, just everything about this turned out really well. It's probably overall my favorite one of the bunch. Just in the way that it just looks and is designed. The Black Dragon is probably my favorite overall dragon design in modern Dungeons & Dragons. But so I've got these. Like I said, I consider those to be pretty rare because, again, they weren't released in large quantities. There was also, just kind of move the camera back out here. There was also a Orcus miniature released that was gargantuan size like these guys. I never ended up getting that one. It was a bit too expensive at the time. I just wasn't into buying for them. I'd like to go back and get it if I can, but if I don't, I'm not that worried about it, because Orcus really isn't my favorite of the Demon Lords anyway. Moving on to the next item in my collection are some bagged miniatures. So what's so rare about these, you're probably asking. And what's rare about these is not necessarily that they're super rare, and I don't know how well it's going to show up because it is inside the plastic bag, but these things were actually promos that were given to the stores for certain events. So this ties into something I'm going to show later in my collection, but it is stamped, instead of having like the set that it was actually part of, it is stamped with, and again, it's probably not going to show up super well because of the bag and the lighting, but it says D&D C46 CG32 Medium Copper Dragon. So instead of the set that this was actually part of, so this is something that was different, and these actually go for a little bit of money. I've seen unbagged ones, like just loose miniatures, selling for about $5 to $8. Just Canadian, just of these miniatures with this stamp on the base. That's pretty cool. The next one here is an ice Mephit. I can't really show it off because it's inside a little cardboard sleeve. But again, this was a preview, and it is stamped with a preview number on the bottom. So again, I can't really read it off. The lighting's not super great right now. It's kind of an overcast day. But this is also one that was made for the purposes of giving out as promos for an upcoming set of miniatures, as was this one here, the Spiker Champion. And I should say, sorry, this one tends to go for around $4 to $6 as well. Both of these I think are around $4 to $6. And neither of these were rare miniatures when they were like in their individual sets. So to buy an Ice Mephit from the set that it actually came with, not really a lot of money. It's probably just, I would say under $1. But having this preview one makes it valuable. It's a little rarer, a little harder to find, especially still bagged up. So I would consider those to be another rare item in my collection. Moving on to one of the more recent things I picked up. This is the Battleground for Dragon Dice. This is the Goblin Playmat. So a while back I did a video on like a 2nd edition AD&D retrospective where I talked about some of the history of stuff that was going on, and I had mentioned Dragon Dice, and honestly I didn't know about Dragon Dice before I started making that video. So this here doesn't have any of the dice in it, and it's still factory sealed. I only paid $12 for it, which I don't consider to be a bad price. But what's in here is a battle map for a player plus a short story. So like I said, I picked this up for $12. Originally it would have been $18.95, so it's cheaper than the initial retail price. Still factory sealed, which is pretty cool. I decided that I'm not going to open it. I'm going to leave this sealed in my collection. And one of these days I hope to get a couple things of the actual Dragon Dice itself. But again, this isn't the easiest thing to come by and find. In fact, I've only ever seen this once in my life, so I consider it to be kind of rare. Alright, moving on. Something that was actually given to me by a friend. This is Swords and Spells Fantastic Miniatures Rules. This is for the use with original Dungeons and Dragons. So this isn't part of the original Dungeons and Dragons game. This is a set of miniatures rules that you can use that were basically redefined or redone from the original chainmail, which it mentions there. So this is just for miniatures rules and combat and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. A friend of mine gave it to me, and it's kind of crazy because this thing is, I've seen it go for anywhere from currently about $40 to $60. Now again, some of them do have smaller amounts that I've seen, like lesser price tags, but this again is something that is still pretty rare. I didn't even know about this, even though I heard about Zero Edition. So another rare item that I consider for my collection. Alright, up next is the Worlds of Greyhawk Fantasy World setting. This is like a folder that came out back in 1980 is when this first released. So this is pretty old, and it just has like some maps in it, which is pretty cool. And it's also got some, where are we here? So it also has a World of Greyhawk Gazetteer and just fantasy figures. So just some cool stuff there. I actually got this pretty cheap, but I'm glad that I have it. And again, this is kind of hard to find these days. So again, I consider this to be a rare item in my collection. Alright, moving on. Why don't we get to, not in the greatest shape, but here I have a Deities and Demigods for 1st edition AD&D. This is a used copy I bought off a friend of mine. I didn't pay a whole lot for it, I don't think. But what's cool about this is one of the versions that has the Cthulhu, let's see if I can show it here. So it has the Cthulhu mythos and the Melanbanian mythos, which were both things that were removed from future printings of the book. Now I want to see if this one, because I don't know what printing this is. I know there was one that gave credited Chaosium, and I don't think this is one of them. So this may be amongst the first. This may be amongst the first printings, because it doesn't actually mention Chaosium in it, which the 2nd and 3rd printings did. So this is again pretty rare, not in the greatest shape, but again I still have it in my collection, and it's absolutely awesome. Alright, moving on. The next item I want to look at here are some Red Steel campaign setting information. This is for 2nd edition AD&D, and this is again pretty obscure, which is why I would consider it to be a rare item. I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about Red Steel, so I've got 2 box sets, and I think there were only 2 sets released for it. So there's the Red Steel main box, and then the Savage Baronies, which came after it. Now what's cool about these is these are actually complete, in that they have like the campaign books, you know, all the stuff that you may need. But both of these, and I may do a more thorough video in the future, but both of these actually came with soundtrack CDs. So audio CD campaign accessory. So we've got, this is the one that came with Red Steel, and this is the one that came with Savage Baronies. I've never actually listened to these yet, but the CDs, the case is actually still quite nice and snug, which is great. The plastic tabs on them are all good, because I have like modern CDs that I've bought where all these little plastic tabs that are supposed to hold the CD just disintegrate the first time I take something out. But the CDs themselves are actually in amazing shape. Looks like they've never been listened to, and they still haven't yet, so I feel kind of bad for that. But again, these are things that I haven't really heard people talk about. They're complete, they have the audio CDs, so I consider these to be a rarity. Alright, moving on, going back to some more miniatures. What I have here are the Beholder's Collector set. So this is something that came out during the 4th edition time. It was a limited release, so there weren't a ton of these made. Not that these are the hardest things in the world to find or the rarest things in the world to find, but again, they didn't get a huge print run. There weren't a ton of these, like there weren't millions of them, I don't think, put out. When I see these now going online, they tend to be like $200 or more. And just inside, what we have is some really fantastic artwork and some alternate versions of Beholders that had never been released before. So I believe this one here is an alternate sculpt that's unique to this set. And then they have remolds from other ones. So I have the regular version of this that's brown, but this is the Eye of Shadow, I think. So this is sort of like a translucent purple, translucent blue. This is the Death Tyrant, I believe. And this is the Eye of Frost. So these are, again, resculpts. So this was the regular Beholder that was released with the 4th edition style of D&D minis. But they redid it in like a clear plastic with some white highlights to make it this frost-based one. So again, this tends to go for quite a bit of money online. And I consider it again to be pretty rare, because I don't really know anybody else that has this. In the people that I know that actually own like D&D, small collections of D&D stuff. And I haven't really ever seen these available in too many places. So again, I consider this to be rare. Now, along with that was the Dragons Collector set. So this was another one that was released shortly after the Beholders. The Beholder was the first one. This was the second one that came out. So this artwork is actually on the D&D 3.5 basic game. which is pretty cool. So I actually really like this art because, again, you know, black dragons are my favorite. So what we have here is the red dragon. So these are large versions of the 5 chromatic dragons. The red dragon and the blue dragon are from the original line of plastic D&D minis, and they're exact reproduction. So they're from those exact molds, those exact paint jobs. And just a second here, I want to see if it mentions anything, because I know the white dragon sculpt, I believe, was unique to this set. So this version of the white dragon I don't think was available anywhere else, and I want to say that the blue dragon, or the black dragon, sorry, and the green dragon were part of the 4th edition lines, because the green dragon was the one that they have here is the redesigned version that was in 4th edition, which is kind of controversial. Some people hated it. I actually kind of liked it, even though the green dragon was my second favorite design from 3.5. I actually kind of like this one. You know, the horn on the back looks pretty cool, sets it apart somewhat, and I don't mind the horn on the nose either. This one's much better than the one that came with the second version of the D&D mini starter set, which I should show off in a future video, but there we go. So again, I consider these to be pretty rare. Now, as for the 2 rarest items in my collection, these are items that were not actually made available for retail. These were never actually sold in stores, but I got them because one of my best friends owned a store, and I picked up one at the time that it actually originally was put out, and then I got another thing when he ended up selling off his collection. So for the second rarest item in my collection, and again, this has a lot of resale value. I don't think it would go for a lot of money. But this is the 2006 World Game Day Adventure, Curse of Gethin Abbey. So the 2006 D&D Game Day was like an organized play event put on by the RPGA. It came with the adventure, and I've got everything here except for one item, which I'm not really too concerned about, but what we have here is the adventure itself, which is only a few pages long. But I also have my original character, and if anybody's wondering, my channel name Draven Swiftbow, this is where it came from. This was the first version of Draven Swiftbow that I had ever created. So here it is here, this is the very original one. So this was the, like I said, the worldwide game day that was put out. So this is the character sheet. There were 5 or 6 characters, I think, in total. I only got to keep my own, but that's okay. That's the only one I really wanted. And so this was an Elven Ranger. And we also have the map. I'm not going to unfold the full map here, but this was actually made using the very first set of dungeon tiles that was put out for 3.5 D&D. So if you had the tiles, you could actually use the tiles for it, but if not, there was the map. And then there's just the adventure itself. It was a pretty short one. It was just meant to be run in really a couple of hours with multiple games supposed to go on, so it's only 6 pages long. But it is really cool. It's a really fun adventure. It's hard as heck. I think only 3 of us ended up actually surviving the encounter. But I also have with it the set of miniatures that came with it. So this came as a kit with the character sheets, the adventure, the map, and these are the miniatures. Now I have a second one of these magma hurlers in there because the person running it, the store owner, when he ran it, basically let everybody kind of walk away with a prize. There was also a set of dice that came with this, and they are the sets of dice that are similar to what came in the 5th edition starter set, if I recall correctly. So it's kind of like the blue with the metallic kind of swirl pattern in it. But these were the miniatures that came with it. Now it also did come with one of these copper dragons. So that's why I have the copper dragon in here as well. So this guy here was a prize for anybody who played in the adventure. So anybody who took part in the 2006 Worldwide Game Day was supposed to walk out with one of these while supplies lasted. So I've got my dragon in there, I've got my magma hurler that I chose as a prize afterwards in there. I wasn't too worried about the set of dice. There was only, I think, 2 of those that were sent with the sets. So he got, I think, 3 of the adventures, 3 copies of the adventures, but only 2 sets of dice, and he got a set of miniatures for each of the things. So anyway, that's where that came from. So that is, again, pretty rare. The rarest item that I have in my collection is probably not complete, But it's along the same lines. This is Legacy of Venom, a Ravenloft adventure for the Adventurers Guild Retail Play Program. So this was 2nd edition TSR back in 1999. So I guess Wizards of the Coast did actually technically own them at this point in time, because there they are there. But this was an organized play adventure to be run. And this is kind of how they did them. I think some stores may have gotten color copies, but you know, for a hobby shop in Nova Scotia, Canada, everything was just like these black and white copies. But again, those probably done to cut down on costs. But this is an adventure that takes place in Ravenloft, which is pretty cool. And this, I would say, is the single rarest item that I have. Just because, again, along with the Curse of Gethin Abbey, neither of these things were actually made available for retail. So while there's probably a few copies of them out there, and there's definitely going to be collectors that have them in their collection, these are probably the two of the hardest to find and rarest things that I have. Alright, so those were the rarest items that I have in my Dungeons & Dragons collection. I hope you enjoyed looking at those. Again, what I consider to be rare is probably different from what other people would consider to be rare. I just look at things like how often I've actually come across them, how much I've actually ever heard of some of these things, and things like, you know, they were put out in limited quantities like with the Dragons and those 2 minis collections, as well as the promo stuff and the things that just weren't made available for retail. So again, I hope you enjoyed that, and if you guys, you know, please let me know what are some of the rarest things that you have in your collection. I'd love to hear this kind of stuff. It's always interesting to know what people have. As for the second part of the question, which was, do I actually want to actively seek rare items in my collection? The answer to that is no. I'm glad that I have the things that I do, but I didn't pay a lot of money for them. The Greyhawk folder, for example, I think was only about $5 or $6. There was a game store in Truro, Nova Scotia that every April 1st, I think, they had this huge, massive blowout sale of like old and used stuff, and I managed to get that there, and it would cost next to nothing. The adventures that I picked up for like the game day stuff, the Legacy of Venom, I got just in a box with some Dragon magazines that I bought off a friend of mine. At the same time, I bought my 0 edition AD&D stuff. Swords and Spells was given to me for free, even though I tried to give the guy a little bit of money for it, at least to repay what he paid, which is only, I think, like $2 or $3. So he didn't spend a lot of money on that either. The most expensive things in my collection would be the miniatures, like the Red Dragon's probably the most expensive thing at $90 when I originally bought it. But as far as looking to buy and pursue rare stuff, I don't think that would be fun. I like finding stuff in the wild, so if I can come across something that seems to be obscure and it's at a good price, I'll definitely pick it up. But I'm not going to go on eBay or Amazon to try to find, like, you know, first printings of, you know, the first edition AD&D Player's Handbook signed by Gary Gygax. As awesome as that would be to have, I'm never going to own something like that, and I'm okay with it. I don't want to spend the kind of money that would cost to buy these types of rare items. So again, a lot of these things were just fortunate happenstance that I managed to pick them up. The 2016 D Game Day, I paid I paid the store owner $20 for to get the adventure, the map, and all the miniatures. I thought that was a fair price because, again, that's something that was going to be kind of obscure. The only thing that was missing from that was a little rectangular card that was called Second Wind, to be used in RPGA events where you can turn it in to heal, like, I think it was 1d8 hit points. I turned mine in at the end of the adventure so that I would actually survive, just to say that I survived. And again, I'm not too worried about that sort of stuff. So again, I hope that kind of answered some of your questions. Again, I'm not really looking for rare stuff. I just want to have some things that are, you know, nice to look at or fun to have in my collection, or make for an interesting story. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other questions that you want me to answer in video, I've got a list of them right now, but please never hesitate to offer suggestions. I love doing these, and for everybody that's watching, let me know again what your rare items are in your collection, if you have any that you consider to be rare, and answer the question yourself. Do you guys care about trying to find rare or hard to find things for your D&D collection? Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.